You're listening to Miss Style, Strength, and Grace with Deidra Murphy. This is your one-stop shop for style, fashion, health, and fitness. Deidra's passion is to help empower women to reach their fullest potential, both inside and out. Deidra and her guests will be discussing how to develop your style, health, and lifestyle hacks to energize your day and inspire you to keep reaching higher levels of success. Deidra is a professional fashion stylist, health guru, and Mrs. Washington 2017. It's time to get open and honest with Deidra.
Well, hello and welcome to today's podcast of Miss Style, Strength, and Grace. I am really excited to introduce today's guest. I first met Lee Giannetta this summer at Mrs. America, and I first just came up to her to compliment her on her outfit, and I was like, oh my goodness, you're like my style sister from another mister, and she's from New York, but in New York, she's an attorney, an activist, and the newly crowned Mrs. World. She is a first-generation American, only moving to the States at the young age of 8 years old from the Taiwanese capital of Taipei. She's also fluent in Mandarin Chinese, and she now lives in Manhattan with her husband, Pat, and works as a lawyer and even serves on the UN Women's Committee. She's passionate about giving back and even helped the UN draft a new initiative called Step It Up for gender equality, while also helping to raise money for the nonprofit called the Brooklyn Asian Voice Organization, of which she is a founding board member. In her spare time, Alice enjoys modeling, working out. She's even won fitness competitions, cooking healthy meals, traveling, and of course, authentic New York pizza. So welcome, Alice.
Thank you. Thank you for that amazing introduction. I'm so flattered.
Well, I had a hard time narrowing it all down. I'm like, I just want to tell everything, but I'll leave some for the actual interview portion.
Oh, thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about Mrs. World. So like I just said, I met you this summer. You were Mrs. New York, and we competed with each other at Mrs. America. And then you were able to actually go and represent your home country as Mrs. Hong Kong at Mrs. World. And you won the international title. So number one, congrats. Amazing job.
Thank you. Thank you.
What was your biggest takeaway from Mrs. World? Besides the crown.
Well, Mrs. World really in a lifetime experience for me. To start off, I have never visited the African continent, and that has always been on my bucket list to one day travel to South Africa or anywhere on the African continent. So for me to be able to travel there and really spend time there, experiencing the culture, the food, I was just impressed every day. I think my biggest takeaway would be the friendship that I was able to form with the ladies from different countries. And it was like the United Nations, but it was the United Nations of sisters from all over the world. It was my first international pageantry experience. I've never done. So all of a sudden, I landed in South Africa, all jet lagged, but I was greeted with ladies from all over the world speaking different languages. And in the beginning, it was sort of a learning curve because I had to get used to getting to know everyone, our different cultures and customs. But that's really my biggest takeaway is that I had the privilege to become friends with so many ladies from around the world.
Did the language barriers create any sort of issues, or how did you relate to women that didn't speak the same language as you?
Sign language.
Giving a lot of thumbs up. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm not only fluent in English and Mandarin Chinese, but also sign language now.
Sign language.
So the skills from pageantry, whether it's at the local, state, national, international level, what are some of the lessons that translate into everyday life? Because, a lot of my listeners may or may not have any experience with pageantry. What skills can be, like I said, translated into everyday life?
Yeah. Actually, I'm a newbie. I would be called a newbie to the pageantry scene because Mrs. World is only my third pageant. But I was really surprised at how many incredible life lessons and disciplines translate to real life just by my 3 pageantry competition experience. If I have to pick one, it would be commitment. And I say that because pageantry involves you to be committed to your goal. However long it takes for you to prepare for the actual competition, you must be committed. So it means on your good days, on your bad days, on your tired days, busy days, depressed days, doubtful days. We all go through those roller coasters of emotions leading up to the actual pageant competition, but it requires you to be so focused and committed. And I think that skill and that training of being committed and staying the course really helps in my work life as a lawyer and as my life as a stepmom and as a wife, to be really committed and staying the course. So I think pageantry really sharpened my commitment skills.
I love that. So for a woman listening has never done a pageant or wouldn't ever do a pageant, how can they use those commitment skills and things that they might be working on? Like, what are some of your biggest tips to translating that into the everyday life of other women?
For me, what I really used when I was preparing for my pageant competitions is writing down a list. And maybe that's just a little old-fashioned because we're so technologically advanced now. But I actually took out a piece of paper and a pen and I wrote my daily to-do list because I find it more manageable when I write it down and when it's just a daily task. Because sometimes if I have to really think about all the things I have to do, it might be overwhelming. So I just really break it down. So day by day, when I wake up in the morning, I write down things that I have to do. And it turns out usually I only have 3 or 4 things. So it just became so much more manageable. And before you know it, by the end of the month, you've accomplished so many things that you wanted to do. So setting daily goals down was really helpful.
Oh, I love that. So kind of manageable chunks that you can take one bite at a time.
Yeah. I mean,
that.
For example, if I had a goal of losing, X amount of pounds in a month, to think about that might be so overwhelming because I'll be thinking, wow, can I really do that in 30 days? That seems like it's a lot of work. It might not be doable. But if I just write down every day, do 5 minutes of push-ups or maybe just do 2 minutes of planks, and that's very manageable. That's only 7 minutes of my time in a day. But before you know it, by the month's end, I have really exceeded my own expectations because I stuck it out day by day.
Yeah.
So I really like to just break it down so it's much more manageable.
And that can coordinate to anybody's life, whether they're trying to start a weight loss journey or even just trying to keep their sanity with maybe running a business or being a mom or doing all the things, all the hats that we as women have to wear. They can help, chunk it down and just reach all those main big rocks and realize, oh, there's really not as much I have to get done today. Like the big things are like, make sure the kids are fed or make sure that this fire is put out at work, and then it's only like a couple of things. And I think as women, we get so overwhelmed and we put so much pressure on ourselves to like be perfect at everything. And I think if we put it on, like you said, like daily manageable tasks, then we can realize, oh, I did actually get quite a bit done today. I love that.
Exactly.
So as a daughter of immigrants, what has growing up in 2 very different cultures taught you in life?
Wow. It taught me a lot of things. I think there are pros and then there are cons of being a first generation immigrant. I think strength and the advantages I've had would be my ability to tough things out, just really tough it out, because my parents came here with combined $300 in their pocket. So I have seen them struggle. I have seen my mom scrub office floors, scrub toilets. I've been there with her. So to me, being poor or being at the rock bottom or starting from the bottom, climbing to the top, that's not scary for me. I think because of my parents and I've seen them struggle, and I've seen them take so many rejections and take so many no's, and being in a country where they didn't know anyone, being alone, far away from family, far away from a language that you know. They really are warriors and survivors, and I think I became a survivor too. So I think it gave me courage and grit to really tough things out and not be afraid. And I think there's some disadvantages as well, because my parents, especially my mom, she's first generation. So when she arrived in America, she was already in her early 30s with 2 kids, and she had a very traditional Chinese upbringing. She was very strict. Everything was schooling, education. Always getting perfect grades was a priority. And I think, when you're raised by a Chinese mom, and I dare to call her a tiger mom, there's a lot of expectations. So I knew that if I came home and I got a 95 on an exam and not 100, I was gonna be punished.
Oh.
So there was a very high standard. It was excellence in everything, especially in education. I remember when I told my mom I got a 95, or was it 96 on an exam, and I was only in middle school, and she looked over my exam and she asked me, why did I get this question wrong? And I said, well, the teacher didn't cover it in class, so I didn't study it for the exam. She went and opened my textbook and flipped the pages to that chapter and said, well, this was in the book, so it's your responsibility. You should have studied it.
Oh.
It's not the teacher's responsibility. So I think, she was very strict. And so in a way, I think I grew up with a lot of pressure to constantly push myself, and I'm pretty hard on myself. But at the same time, I think she really taught me to be more accountable for my actions.
Yeah, taking responsibility, like with the chapter in the book, it was in there, so it could have been covered on the test. I have to admit, I didn't experience anything like that, and honestly, until I reached college and I realized that college professors would put things on the test that, hadn't been covered, but they're like, but it was in the book and it was in the required reading, so it was open for testing. I'm like, oh, okay, I learned that question or that lesson really early on in freshman year.
Yeah. And I guess because I think it applies for any immigrants too, not just immigrants from Asia. We didn't have a lot of resources. So immigrants are very resourceful. My mother, she didn't have money to hire me a tutor for English. So she had a dictionary that she brought with her, and it was a Chinese English dictionary. So she told me to learn English by memorizing the dictionary. She's just like, every day, learn 3-4 words.
Oh my goodness.
I was only 8 years old. Yeah, I was only 8 years old. I was in 3rd grade. So I was like, okay. And it didn't seem that bad or that crazy at that time. So I just started from letter A, and I memorized 3-4 words a day. And then before you knew it, I finished the dictionary.
So you have this whole new repertoire of words to choose from. Well, and that's that's a hard task too, to learn English, especially from a Mandarin-based language, because it's not similar symbols. It doesn't have the same phonetics. So I'm really impressed by that. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Especially, I look back to my teaching days, and I had a lot of students that came with a Spanish language at home. Usually English is a second language, and it was usually a Spanish-based home. And even they struggled, but I can see how that could be easier going from Spanish to English, because there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? The sounds are similar, and cognates that are the same. And wow, power to you, bow down is all I can say.
Thank you.
What piece of advice would you give someone, who is maybe a first generation American looking to achieve the American dream, whether they're an Asian immigrant or, from Mexico, whatever, like what piece of advice would you give to that person?
I want to tell that person that the American dream is still alive and well, that despite what you might hear in the media, I think the American people, the American principles of freedom and equality still shine so bright, and that there's room for new immigrants and new Americans who come here, who want to become Americans, who want to work hard, who want to assimilate to our culture and contribute to our society and build their family here. There's plenty of room for you to succeed. So don't lose hope. In the last election cycle, we heard a lot of pretty negative things. Maybe made some immigrants feel rejected or isolated. But even in New York City, I've traveled around the country. I'm an immigrant myself, and I'm a minority. And I still feel that our country is still that country's acceptance and tolerance. And as long as you're willing to work hard, and stay the course, you will be able to fulfill your American dream.
I love that. And it's so true. Like if you're willing to put in the hard work, then you can make it in America, whether you're an immigrant or, born and raised in America. I think either way, those rules, I don't want to call them rules, those principles still stand.
Yeah. And, I just came back from Paris, and I've been to Paris many times, but I tell my husband, Pat, as we were waiting for our flight in Charles de Gaulle Airport, I said, I can't wait to go home. And it's so interesting because after all these years of travel, the more I travel, the more I appreciate being an American. Mm-hmm. And it's not to say that I love other countries or appreciate other countries, but I realize that our country still has so much more to offer in every way.
Yeah.
Our diversity, our economy. Even in Paris, the city of light, when I'm chatting with the waiters there, they all talk about how they want to come to America to find work.
Yeah.
So, our country really is truly incredible. And yeah, people can come here from all over the world and make their American dream come true.
I love that. I think it's so important as Americans, if you get the chance and opportunity to travel, to do it. The first time that I traveled to a country that was not as advanced as America was, my husband and I went on a mission trip to the Dominican, and I became thankful for toilet paper. Because so many places, we were there for a mission, obviously, so it wasn't just, on a fancy resort the whole time. And there was a lot of places. I learned to start carrying toilet paper with me because you never knew where you're going to go. And then sometimes it was literally in the middle of a rainforest that I, had to use the restroom. And I was like, wow, I'm just really thankful for toilet paper. As in America, I'm like, no matter where I go in the States, like the biggest issue is maybe having to lean over to the stall next to me and be like, can you hand me some toilet paper underneath the stall? Anyway, so from that topic, moving on, I did want to ask one more question kind of in regards to being an immigrant in America. What was the hardest thing you had to deal with as an Asian American young girl growing up in New York?
Well, I think for me, growing up, I became very self-conscious of the way I look, particularly my eyes. When I was a teenager, I was so self-conscious. I didn't think I was beautiful because when I became interested in makeup and fashion, and when I looked at magazines, at that time it was 17 magazine, YM magazine.
Oh yeah, I remember those 17 magazine. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So when I was flipping through the pages, I remember I didn't see anyone who looked like me. And so when I was trying to learn makeup tips or like what color eyeshadows I should use and how to apply eyeshadows, I didn't have a model like in those pages that I could relate to. I didn't have anyone who looked like me, anyone who resembled me, anyone with my eye shapes. And it was very, and now looking back, I think it was very hurtful. That time, I was a teenager, I just felt, oh, maybe either I'm not beautiful or I'm not American enough. That's why I'm not included. Um, but now, as an adult looking back, I think it was very hurtful to me, the young Alice, to not have representation, especially at the time where I was going through puberty and developing to a woman. And I think it definitely affected my self-esteem to not have representation. So yeah.
Do you think that's
if I have to
improved
pick,
at
that
all
would
in our
be it.
culture? Like if you were to pick up a magazine nowadays, do you feel like there are women that represent, you, and you can find beauty tips for your eye shape or your coloring nowadays? Like, has it improved?
I think it definitely has improved. I think I've seen a lot more diversity in our magazines, on TV. There's like a new show now about all Asian families. I think it's called Fresh Off the Boat. I remember when I saw that, I was like, "What?" That was not available when I was growing up in the early 90s. So I think definitely we are making tremendous improvements to be more inclusive. So I think we're heading in the right direction. Obviously, I would like to see more, but I think we're on our way.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, too, it's becoming a lot more talked about, not only in the media, but in, magazines and even on social media, everything like that. Everyone's trying to be more inclusive, and I love that.
Yeah, and now I realize not only was I not taught how to do my own makeup because I didn't see models like me, I think a lot of makeup artists didn't know how to do my
Oh,
makeup
no.
either because I guess because, if I'm not seeing the media, maybe the artists are not being taught it either. So I remember my first time having a professional makeup artist, I think was for my junior prom. And I swear she didn't know how to do my makeup
Oh,
because
no.
I think she, she was great, but because she never really, I guess, was taught how to do Asian features or Asian eyes. And so that was a challenge for her too.
So kind of speaking of that, what are some tips that you might have, A, for Asian Americans when it comes to makeup, like other women, and then B, for anybody, what are some makeup hacks or tips that you might have?
Well, I think one of the things I have learned to really value is skincare. When I was in my 20s, I didn't really pay much attention to skincare, but now I think skincare really makes a difference, especially in your makeup, because our skin is our foundation. And when you have nice skin, it's a great canvas for you to do the rest of your makeup, to apply the highlighters and the contours. You need a nice skin as your canvas. So I think my number one tip would be to always remember to remove your makeup. Remove all of your makeup before bed. And that means investing in a good makeup remover. Because before, when I didn't know any better, I would just wash my face, even if I were wearing makeup, with soap or whatever cleanser I was using, and I didn't invest in a good makeup remover. But now I always remove my makeup with makeup remover, remove my eye makeup with eye makeup remover, and then wash my face. I think that is so important to really go to bed and give your skin a break, to let it breathe after wearing makeup. Drinking lots of water is really good for your skin to keep it hydrated, looking supple. So I think actually my makeup tip would be those two. And my recent makeup discovery, which I would include in my arsenal of makeup tips, always have a good red lipstick in your
classic
makeup
red
bag.
lip. You can never go wrong with a classic red lip. I love that. Did you have any unique makeup tips for other Asian women as far as like different contours or like for your eye makeup? Do you have any tips for that?
I think if I have to pick one for Asian women in particular, I would say to not go too heavy on black colors for your eyelids. I think for us, a nice black eyeliner close to the lash line on our upper eyelid is good. But I think if we want to do a smoky, I think colors like browns or even pink tones are much more prettier and actually highlights our pupils more than a completely black smoky.
Mm-hmm. Kind of keeping it a little bit more natural as a way to accent and highlight your
Yeah.
features. I love
I
that.
think I think when we do, especially for Asian eyes, I think if we do a completely black smoky, it tends to blur even our actual pupils. So it doesn't highlight our eyes as much. Whereas if I were to do a variety of browns as a smoky color, like dark browns and a gradient to a lighter brown, or even like a little gold shimmer, I think it actually brings out our eyes more.
I love that. And well, that's what makeup is supposed to do. We're not typically trying to, hide our features. We want to accentuate, right? Accentuate our assets.
Yeah.
I love that. That kind of leads me into the next question, because I noticed too, you've done some modeling work. One, how did you get into modeling? And two, well, yeah, let's just start with that. Like, how did you get into the modeling aspect of the work?
Oh boy, it's actually a funny story. And it relates to my tiger mom. It was completely by accident. When I was 15, my mom and we were shopping in Flushing, Queens, which at that time I think still is a predominantly immigrant community in New York. And we went into a bakery, and she saw a poster searching for spokesmodels for a Japanese cosmetic company. And the winner was going to get 1 year's worth of free cosmetics. So my mom thought, oh, it'd be nice to try to get 1 year free of makeup. So she took a Polaroid, like literally a Polaroid of me standing in front of the white wall. And it was just the front and side and one full body. And she mailed it in to this address on the poster. And then 2 weeks later, we got a call to our house, our landline. And it was this cosmetic company, and they said I was selected to be one of the finalists for an in-person interview in Manhattan. I think it was at the Roosevelt Hotel. So my mom took me there, and then from there I was selected to move on to an actual competition. And I ended up winning the competition to be their spokesmodel. So I started modeling for them. It was a cosmetic company contract for a year when I was 16. And through that, Ford models found me. And at that time, Ford was still quite small. They were located in Soho, in the second floor walk up, in a little building. And they asked to see me. And they signed me when my 1 year contract was up. So I was with Ford. That's how I started my modeling career.
Was it interesting modeling for a cosmetic company that specifically wanted a Japanese model versus you're of Chinese descent? Like, how did that work out?
So I was the first Chinese model that they've ever had, apparently. And I thought, I didn't really at that time pay much attention to that, although the cultural aspect was very interesting because a Japanese cosmetic company, their focus was more on skincare, in particular whitening of their skin. So any sunspots or freckles was frowned upon. So all their products in whitening aspect to it. And that was pretty interesting to me because at that time, I was a teenager and I loved being out in the sun. I loved to swim and play tennis. So I didn't really take particular care of my skin. So learning from working with the Japanese company really taught me a bit more about their culture. And I really enjoyed it.
That's amazing. And then with the Ford modeling company, what kind of gigs did that get you and exposure to?
Yeah, I did a lot of commercial work. So I did work L'Oreal, Shiseido, Avon, a lot of department stores like Macy's, Target, Panasonic. I mean, I'm not very tall, so I primarily booked lots of commercial print work.
Okay.
So it was really fun.
What
Yeah.
has being in the modeling industry taught you as a lesson in life? Like what kind of skills translate, kind of like with pageantry, like what kind of skills translate from modeling into real life?
It taught me a lot. But if I have to pick one, I think it would be to not feel bad when you get rejected.
Let's talk more about that. Like,
yeah, to have thick skin. I think that's one of the biggest things that modeling has taught me, especially in a competitive market, is to have thick skin and be okay and still feel good and have self-esteem even when somebody rejects you. Because, when you go to a casting call, you might think that you are the best and you might be the best, but you're going to be in a room with 20 other girls who are just as qualified as you. And for some reason, the client or the casting director might pick another model over you. And you have to be strong enough to know that that's okay. That's just what that particular person liked for that day. And it doesn't mean that you're any less. And you still have to be confident and go on to your next casting call. So I think it's a lot of emotional training to be tough and to be strong and to be confident and to take a rejection well.
That's such a good life lesson for anybody, really. I mean, whether it comes to maybe even business women that have a career and they're trying to maybe land that new client or whatever, like being able to take rejection, even if you're trying out to be out there and like promote your business, and you might get like 10 no's to 1 yes for everything.
Oh yeah.
So it's such a good message. I love that. And it's actually really similar with pageantry. I mean, we were both at Mrs. America, 52 other amazing women. Any one of us could have easily walked away with the crown and would have been a great representative of that organization. So it's what that particular 5 group of judges or 5 people of judges is looking for that day, that time, that year. So you got to be able to walk away and know that you're still a good person. And I love how important it is for us as women to, come together and support one another. And I remember seeing that photo of you actually getting hugged by Michaela Eppers, our current Mrs. America, right after you won Mrs. World.
Yeah, I have to say, even when I close my eyes now, I can still feel Michaela's hand. I still remember when I was crowned, when I turned around, she was the first person I saw. I saw her big smile. I don't think she could physically smile any bigger. I heard her call me Alice. I felt her hand. She reached over her hand. She touched my chin, and she just reached toward me and hugged me so tight. And, at that moment, all the adrenaline, the lights, I was a little discombobulated because of all the excitement. But I still remember so vividly Michaela's face, how she called my name. I heard her call my name, her voice, how she reached towards me with such love and support. I felt like she won too. That's how she made me feel. She made me feel that she won too. And that we did it together, because the way she hugged me, it was just incredible. So, oh my God, I have like the hair on my arms standing up right now, just thinking about it.
Oh, I love that. And that's so amazing that you guys had that moment and that experience, even though there was so many people watching and so many people around you. It's like almost like you two were the only ones on the stage.
Oh my, 100%. And still, she was the one that taught me too how to tie the sarong for the competition.
See, it's not all about like hating each other. We are actually back there supporting one another.
Yes, she taught me how to tie the sarong for the competition. And on the night of the show, my hands were so oily from the shine that I was trying to put it on my legs that I couldn't tie the sarong. And I ran to Michaela. I was like, Michaela, can you please tie the sarong for me? And she did it.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's true sisterhood. So, speaking about the sarong and going into the fitness portion, let's kind of talk about strength a little bit. How did you get into fitness competitions? And, was there a motivating journey or struggle for you when it came to learning how to work out and exercise?
Well, growing up, I actually never went to the gym, and I was not particularly interested in exercising. I just didn't know much about it. And I've always thought, oh, if you lifted weights, then you're going to look like a lumberjack, or, it's like lifting weights is for men.
People get that misconception that women will just like completely bulk up and look manly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was like, oh my God, if I lifted weights, I was going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I never lifted weights. It wasn't until I turned 30, I realized, like, you know what? I was feeling a little lethargic. I was working long hours, and I didn't really have a healthy eating plan. I mean, I just pretty much woke up, coffee, I went to work, I would grab whatever I can on the way to work, and then I ate pretty much whatever was at our office conference rooms during meetings. I worked long hours, I went out to happy hours with coworkers afterwards, and I just didn't have a healthy eating pattern, and it left me feeling so lethargic. It didn't feel good. I felt bloated all the time, tired all the time. So I turned 30 and I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to do something for myself, for my health, for my body. So I started by doing SoulCycle, which is a indoor spinning class. It's a chain. And at that time, they didn't have as many studios as they do now. But I started by doing spin classes. And I really enjoyed it. And after about 3 months of spinning, I realized like I was feeling really good when I was sweating it out on the bike, but I really wasn't seeing major changes in my body. And that's when my husband, Pat, he said, honey, you should go to the gym and lift some weights. And I was like, no, I'm not. I don't want to look like a man. No way, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you don't have enough testosterone to look like a man.
Right.
He's like, if you want to see changes in your body, you need to lift weights. So it was because of him encouraging me. That's when I went to the gym and I started lifting weights. And, at that time I was like, oh my God, 5 pounds is so heavy. So I was pretty weak. I didn't know I was weak until I started lifting weights and I realized I was pretty weak. So being a little competitive, I wanted to get better at it. So I started being consistent with going to the gym, being consistent with training. And I hired a trainer to really teach me proper form. And eventually I began to lift heavier and heavier and get stronger and stronger. And now I'm addicted. I'm never turning back.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. Like it does get easier over time. Like at first you're a little bit sore and that 5 pounds feels really heavy, but then you get stronger and stronger. And then soon you're up to 10, 15, 20 pounds, whatever it is. And, it's just like what you said earlier about taking things one step at a time, chunking it, whether it's a list for your to-do list or, starting out at 5 pounds of weight, like start where you can and go from there.
Yeah, and I remember at the beginning too, I was very intimidated just going to the gym because I think it still is. The gym is mostly men, and I was pretty intimidated. And because beginning, thankfully, I had my husband going with me, but then there became times where I was going by myself, and I became a little intimidated. But then I realized, you know what? Hey, I paid the same amount in my gym membership as the guy, so I deserve to be here and use.
I have just as much right.
Exactly. It's not like I'm paying any less. So, but like the guys, they actually, they're like very welcoming. I've never had a bad experience. I think men or women, they're there to, it's like a sanctuary. It's a way to release stress, and it's a way to feel fit and healthy and happy. So people are actually, I would say, pretty much always in a good mood at the gym.
Yeah, or at least they will be by the time they leave.
Welcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, and it's so true. Like you don't have to go to the gym and like be surrounded by all the meatheads. So many gyms nowadays even have women's only sections within their gym, or even if you're starting out at home, you can get just a couple sets of like little dumbbells and do a lot of things, or even body weight exercises that add resistance just from home even. So I did want to ask, like, what tips would you have for women wanting to start incorporating some weights into their exercises? And maybe it is kind of daunting going into the gym or whatever. Like, what are some starter tips that you would give them?
Okay, so if a woman who has never done any type of weight training before, I think a good way might be, and a free way might be, to invest in a set of dumbbells. And it could be dumbbells, I would say a good way would be five. So 2 5-pound dumbbells, or 2 10-pound dumbbells. So you have a set. And you can even now Google some at-home exercises with dumbbells on YouTube. I think it's good to perhaps watch some videos at home in the comfort of your own home and the privacy of your own home, and perhaps practice with some of these basic exercises with dumbbells at home, or even resistance bands. I think those are, if you're a complete beginner, I think practicing a bit at home without feeling self-conscious because you're in your own privacy, I think is a really good way to start. But I think my breakthrough was really going into the gym. So I really do encourage all women to eventually go into the gym and to really know, like, at the gym, everyone's working hard on their own. Like, the guys, they're busy working on their own fitness. So don't feel self-conscious. Don't feel like people are going to judge you. Don't feel like you're not good enough, because you are. We were all beginners once. Everybody started from day one. I started from day one. The big guy, the gym, he started from day one. So we all start somewhere. Yeah. So don't ever feel self-conscious. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think too, people aren't really paying as much attention to others as they think. You go into the gym and it seems like everyone's looking at you, or you might be seen as a newbie, but they're really not judging you. And honestly, there's a lot of people there to help, even if it's like a staff member of a gym or a trainer. Like, you can even ask them little questions here and there. And most people there are really willing to help, is what I found. But I love the tip about getting just even a couple pairs of resistance bands. I even did a little how-to video just the other night and posted it to Facebook, and it just showed like some things that women can do at home without any equipment, or just using like resistance bands for bicep curls or shoulder presses or whatever. There's so much you can do, and just finding little hacks on like YouTube or whatever. There's so much information out there nowadays.
Yeah, and I really think the key to training is really resistance. So like you said, it could be resistance bands, it could be dumbbells, it could be a gallon of water, or anything that has
laundry soap.
Weight. Yes. Sometimes, like my dog,
right.
Like if your dog is 30 pounds, that's really good. You could squat holding your dog.
Yeah, or a baby, pick up the baby and
exactly.
do some squats.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it.
So it's really about resistance. So it could come in many forms, and it's just, you need resistance to really change your body. And I think that's really the key. You just need some type of counterbalance resistance to really force your bodies to change.
Yeah. And I think it's obviously workable for our physical body, but I think it's representative of the fact that anything in life that we want to achieve, has resistance to it. If we want to get better with our business, or better with our energy, or our focus on our mental, happiness, like everything that we want to do and achieve has resistance, and that's how we get stronger, mentally, emotionally, physically. So I love that. So I know you're very busy and you travel a lot. Do you have any on-the-go healthy eating tricks or hacks or tips that you can share?
Well, I think if I have to pick one, it would be, if you are stranded and you are You are just so hungry. If you're at the airport or you're at a restaurant or you're on the go and you're not able to bring your own meals or cook, and you're stranded for options, I would say try to go for the protein first. So if you're ordering at a restaurant, I would try to, whatever it is that you order, try to eat a protein first. Because I find the protein to be more satisfying and it will make you feel full faster. And if you're full, then the chances of you overeating on other items is going to be less. So I always try to eat protein first. If I'm at the airport on the go, I always find options like even hard-boiled eggs to be really easy to come by. I could almost always find hard-boiled eggs. So those are really good, healthy, high protein, especially the egg whites, and low calories, and they make me feel full. So I always try to go for proteins if I'm not at home and I don't have my meals with me.
Love that. Or even carrying like some high quality protein bars with you, or do you ever have any go-to protein products that you love and always have on hand? That are like shelf stable?
I don't really eat protein bars.
It's hard to find good ones, honestly. It's really hard. Not just good tasting, but with like the macros, like the macro breakdowns for like grams of protein, carbs, and fats. Like it's hard to find ones that are, sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. Like for me, and also sometimes I look at the breakdown and I see there's too much sugar in a protein bar. So what I do is so I have these little small size Ziploc bags, and sometimes I'll just put like a scoop of protein powder, like pure whey powder. I put them in a Ziploc bag and I carry them with me in my bag. And
oh my gosh, I do the same thing.
Yeah. So, if sometimes I'll do that really quick. As a matter of fact, that's what I did at Mrs. America in Vegas. Like I packed 9 little Ziploc of proteins, 1 scoop each bag, and I just drank it in the morning in a shaker bottle.
I did the same thing. Oh my gosh. Like, how did we not know this about each other? Like, if you looked at my purse at any given time, not only at Mrs. America, but honestly, like really any given time, you can probably find a scoop of protein powder in a Ziploc. You'll probably find some raw, like almonds or cashews, and you might find an apple or something in my bag at any given time.
No wonder we are sisters, because we literally have the same things in our bags.
I know that, and I'm like, I wish we were the same size, because I would totally raid your closet if I could. I love that.
I just feel like it's easy to just have a quick protein, and it's low calorie, and it's just straight up protein, so it's easier. Because I love to eat, so if it's sugars or carbs, I'd rather get them from like potatoes,
right?
Sweet potatoes, rice. If I could get my sugar from fruits, I love fruit, so that's why I don't really eat protein bars, because I'd rather just get my carbs and sugar from actual food.
Yeah.
But I totally love protein powders, though. I think they're so handy and so easy to carry.
And you can really find ones that have either like stevia as an alternative to sugar, so that keeps them low in sugar and low in carbs, and even like whey protein or plant-based protein. Is there a certain brand or protein powder that you've just been loving?
I have been drinking, I think it's called Isopure. Isopure whey protein. Buy them in the big container, and I've been pretty much on them consistently for about 2 years. But I mean, I pretty much think that there are a lot of good options out there. There are a lot of good brands out there. It just depends on your taste. I prefer whey protein. And I think Isopure, the brand, at least to my knowledge, seems to be pretty pure, just whey isolate protein. But I'm pretty sure there are other brands out there too. It just depends on your taste. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that. Kind of trying it out. I I kind of wanted to switch gears and ask a few questions that I typically ask most of my guests. So I just want to know, are there any current favorite resources or things that you have in your life to help inspire you and motivate you or educate yourself? You know, maybe it's a podcast or a TED Talk. Do you have anything like that that you've just been loving?
So I love going on social media. So I follow a lot of accounts that I find inspiring. There's so many, but I like an Instagram account. It's called Makers Women. So it's M as in Michael, Akers Women. I'm making sure that I'm saying it right. And I find it a really empowering account because they often have on that page different quotes by different women. Yeah, it's Makers Women.
Okay.
Makers Women, plural. They have different quotes from different female leaders. They have like just good content that makes me feel empowered. Modern women, strong female leaders. So I like following their account. But I also really enjoy following my Facebook friends because through Mrs. New York pageant, Mrs. America pageant, now Mrs. World pageant, I've met so many female leaders. Like you, you're a female leader. You're
so sweet.
Following. Yeah, I like going on Facebook and seeing your updates and your podcasts and your outfits and your tidbits and your Facebook Live videos. I feel really empowered seeing you out there just, inspiring women, inspiring people to be their best self. And I see pageant sisters too doing great things in their community. So I feel like I'm really surrounding myself with like lady bosses.
I love it. It's like that saying, like, show me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. You know, it's like whoever you surround yourself with, like that tells me who you are as a person too. So I love that. That's so sweet. What are your top 3 core values that dictate how you make decisions in life?
3 core values. Well, I would have to say my first one would be honesty. I think now, whenever I make decisions, I really have to be honest with myself, honest about whether or not it is something that I truly want to do, or am I doing it because I want to please someone else? I think it's really important to always make sure you're honest with yourself when you make a decision. I think grit is also my really important core value, because no matter what it is I decide to do or pursue, I should have grit to really tough it out, to not quit when it becomes challenging, and to not quit because I'm tired, to remember that I'm committed to a certain goal. So I think grit is important. And a third one, I would choose love, because I think at the end of the day, loving yourself, loving whatever decision that you made or whatever goal you want to obtain, or loving the situation that you're in, because the people that are surrounding you, to always feel love and be grateful. I think that's so important. So I think it would be honesty, grit, and love.
I love that. And they all come down, from your past and what's shaped you into the woman you are today. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. My last question is something I ask all my guests, and very open to interpretation. So take it the way that you want. So what does it mean to do things with style and grace?
To do it with style and grace. It's funny because when I say those 2 words out loud, style and grace, I immediately think of a third word, which is confidence.
Ooh.
Yeah. And yeah, I think when I think of somebody who has grace, is really somebody who is really confident. So I think for me, the interpretation would be confident in how you carry yourself, be confident in how you dress. So it doesn't mean that it has to be the latest fashion. You just have to feel confident in whatever it is that you're wearing. So don't feel pressured to always follow a trend that if you don't feel comfortable, don't. Just feel confident in what you wear is the most beautiful thing and is the most stylish thing. And I think somebody who's graceful is also somebody who's really confident and very sure of who she is, and she treats people in return with a lot of grace.
Yes, because it could be one thing to be confident, but if you're talking down to others or treating them in a way that makes them feel inferior, then that's never graceful.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
love that. Awesome.
100%.
Well, as we wrap up, where can my listeners find you, follow you, and hear more about what you're up to?
Sure. So my Instagram account is at Mrs. Alice Lee G. So that's MRSALICELEEG. That's my Instagram account. And also our website, which is mrsworld.com. There will be updates of what I do during my year and my travels.
That's awesome. And more about your work with your platform and your nonprofits and
Yes.
everything too will be posted on there?
Yes. I most likely you will find the most recent quick updates on my Instagram account, which is Mrs. Alice Lee G. January 25th, we have an event for the United Nations Women's Committee in New York City. So I'll be sharing updates on my Instagram account and my Instagram stories regarding my work with the United Nations Women's Committee. My platform is gender equality, and that's a big topic for us on the Women's Committee at the United Nations. And in particular, our goal is to get men to join us in the women's movement because we need men to also support us and support equality. So our hashtag for our January 25th event would be hashtag he for she, because we want men to also stand up for gender equality, and we need men to join us in the fight. So.
I love that. Yes, I love that. That's so inspiring. That's powerful right there.
Thank you.
I love that.
Oh,
well,
thank you.
Thank you again so much for joining me on my podcast. And I look forward to seeing more updates from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It has been my pleasure to join you in the podcast and to talk to you, my sister. So it's been so fun for me as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And all the resources and everything will be in my show notes. So check those out if you're listening.
Hey ladies, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. To help empower more women, please be a doll and rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. For show notes and other free resources we mentioned today, go to stylebydeidra.com.